Welcome and thank you for coming to our webinar. I hope you're all having a great week. Today, we're very happy to have Barry Rosen, Adam Kesner, Martin Donnelly, and Brian Gleeson from IBM with us for their session about the Notes and Domino roadmap and a deep dive into Feature Pack 8. This webinar is brought to you as part of the free monthly webinar series from Team Studio and TLCC. My name is Courtney. I'm the marketing manager at Team Studio. It was so nice to see a lot of you at the Team Studio booth at Connect in San Francisco. If you weren't able to make it to the show, please check out our blog to see everything we at Team Studio have been up to lately. I'm here today helping to run this webinar along with Howard Greenberg from TLCC. Howard is going to go over some administrative items like how to ask questions. Then we'll give Barry at IBM the floor. Over to you, Howard.
Okay, thank you, Courtney. And let me just turn on my screen here. Okay, so just most of you are very familiar with TLCC, just a moment on that. We have been doing notes and Domino courses for developers, admins, and users for about 20 years. We have a free demo course at our website I invite you to try, including a free introduction to XPages course. And then we also have 6 other XPages and Java courses. So if you're getting into XPages or been doing it for a while and just want to improve your skills, please come to our website, check it out, try out our free demo course and give that a try and see how our courses work. Oh, our courses are self-paced. And you take them at your own pace using your Notes and Domino client. We also do mentoring as well for some of our clients. We help them with their applications, as well as do private classes that we can do at your location or virtually. And we spend most of our time, I should say myself, on application development and consulting. I wanted to give a shout out for Theo's conference. Many of you know Theo, who runs the Engage conference, and it typically alternates between Belgium and the Netherlands. This year it's in Belgium. Theo has just in the last week or two finalized all the sessions and speakers. He has some great speakers from not just the European area, but from all over the world. So if you're in Europe, I highly suggest this conference. You can't beat the price, it's free. And it's another thing about Theo's conferences, they are always in really good venues. So I looked at the pictures and the information on his website about this venue, and it looks like again he's outdoing himself. So if you're in Europe or just want to go to Europe or can somehow talk your boss into sending you to Europe, highly suggest you check out Engage. Our next webinar that we have planned, we will try to have a June webinar as well that I want to finalize. But we do have finalized Serdar and Bill are going to present a session from Connect 2017, where Bill, if you don't know him, is a very excellent admin person. Serdar is an excellent developer, and they're going to talk about how your bad application development practices can bring down your server in terms of performance and reliability. So this should be a great session. Highly suggest you try to attend if you can, if you're a developer or admin. Okay, so as far as asking questions, in your GoToWebinar interface, it probably looks a little different than this picture. It looks like they just recently updated their interface, but you still have a little, the questions pane here, where you should ask your questions. We're going to take your questions at the end of the webinar, and I'll ask our team of IBMers your questions verbally, and they will respond verbally. But please ask your questions in the questions pane. If you don't see that, you can use a little orange arrow to expand out the GoToWebinar interface, and you should see then the questions pane. Okay, I think we're ready to let IBM take it away. And first up is going to be Barry and Adam, and they're going to go over the the Notes and Domino plans, and then Martin and Brian are going to take a deeper technical dive into Feature Pack 8. I didn't call it Fix Pack 8, it's now Feature Pack 8. And when Martin and Brian get done with all the new features that were added in there, I think you will understand why they're calling it a Feature Pack and not a Fix Pack. So Barry, I'm going to make you the presenter.
Okay. And I'm actually going to hand it over to Adam. Adam's going to start off, and then he's going to hand it to me, but I will go ahead and control the screen. So Adam, if you want to take it from here.
Thank you, Barry. My name is Adam Kesner. I'm Technical Offering Manager for Notes Domino Application Development. And so I'll walk you guys through the first couple slides and then pass it over to Barry. All right, so Barry, let's move forward to the first slide. So the first thing we really want to talk about and hit on are the investments that have been made in Notes Domino, 2016 and what's coming in 2017. So the first thing is talking about feature packs, and feature packs is really the new way that we're going to deliver changes to Notes and Domino. It's an incremental delivery. We want to do it, a couple times a year, maybe more, depending on, how much code and what goes into them. We just delivered Feature Pack 8. Fix Pack 7 was released in September, and Feature Pack 9 will be sometime later this year. So these are where we're really going to be putting in the new features and the new functionality for that. Now, along with that was a big announcement around support, and this came out last year in September, and that was that we're extending the support for all current Notes and Domino platforms through at least September 2021. So the reason of this is actually tied to the feature packs, because Domino 901 was released in 2013, and when it's released, IBM does a 5-year support plan, so that means support would have ended in 2018. When we did our feature packs and moved to this, we then extended 5 years from that point, because that's IBM always extends 5 years, and that brings us out to at least 2021. There is currently no end of life date, and the plan is to continue extending and making adjustments as we move forward and as the business moves forward. So it's really important to know that we're investing in Notes Domino, we're investing in these feature packs, adding features, we're adding to the support timeline, and that could add further. It's just right now we do in 5-year increments. So most of the features that are coming in 8 and 9 are going to be discussed during this. So you'll see a lot about the feature packs and what was in 8 and what's going into 9, as well as all the X pages stuff that was in there. Another really exciting thing that we announced was the IBM mail support for Microsoft Outlook, also known as IMSMO. So this really allows you to use that Outlook client for both on-prem and cloud deployments. We did an update to ICAA with 1.01. We've got AppNext, which is the X Pages runtime on Bluemix, which was made available in the second quarter of 2016. And of course, a really big one was IBM Burst On-Prem coming out in December, right before the end of the year. And that's a really, really great way to give your employees, your users, a really cool interface into the mail file, that web modern interface into their mail. Next slide, Barry. All right, so we talked about the support extension, and this is really just keeping customers on until at least 2021. And again, there's no end of life plan. We're still investing in the product, and you'll see that, and you'll continue to see it with all of the stuff that we're doing. We're continuing to enhance everything and push everything forward. And then we do know that 8.5x has been in market for 6 years, so there was an end of service there. Go ahead, Barry. So what is a feature pack? A feature pack is, similar to what the fix packs were, but they deliver features and fixes. And the intent is to provide them at a cadence of 3 to 4 per year, again, depending on what's going to be in them and how long it takes. It's going to be, 901 is going to be the baseline release, and all the feature packs are going to be coming up on top of that. So we're at 901, fix pack or feature pack 8. Coming out later this year will be 9, and that allows us to do this continuous delivery and get these features and fixes and everything to you quickly. And there are core technical elements that we need to do to support the longevity of Domino, and these are some of the highest priority. This is part of what we're getting in these feature packs. Go ahead, Barry. So if you look at this slide, it kind of shows the timeline of where we are, and there's a lot on here, right? So we've got, we got IMSMO that came out, the announcement for support, FixPack 7 came out at the end of 2016, then burst on-prem, and you can see the timeline for how things are going. So we've got 9 coming out at the end of the year, and then, through the line, we'll have future things coming forward. And of course, it's all really exciting stuff that we're doing with Notes and Domino because we value how valuable this is to our customers. Okay, Barry, I think that's it for me, and we'll pass it over to you.
All right, thank you, Adam. So continuing with Feature Pack 8, we did make some platform updates with that particular feature pack. What we did is we added Microsoft Windows 2016 support to Feature Pack 8. It is now also supported on Traveler as well. We're working on same time. That should be coming up in the second half of the year for 2016 support on same time. We've also dropped AIX and Linux from 32-bit from Feature Pack 8 going forward. We have reviewed a lot of the PMRs and downloads around these particular platforms, and the majority of the customers are on 64-bit, so we're trying to get everybody to move in that direction as well. From a client perspective, there will also be no new functional improvements for Linux beyond Feature Pack 7. So it will be supported through the end of support, but there will be no new functional improvements beyond FixPack 7. On the Notes side of the equation, on the Mac side of the equation, we're working on feature parity right now. We did not release a Feature Pack 8 on the Mac. We're working hard to make sure by end of year we have some parity between that, and any of our feature packs will be cumulative, so when we do have the next feature pack for the Mac platform, it will contain all of the improvements that went before it. Also, from a verse on-premises perspective, since that was newly released, we didn't want to hold them back with our cadence. So they're on their own roadmap for this year so that they can release a couple of releases past the 1.0, and they're currently working on 1.0.1, and we do intend to have a 1.1 later in the year as well, in order to allow the verse on-premises team some space there. We didn't align, but the goal is to align feature packs with verse on-premises updates so that going forward, probably next year, 2018 timeframe, it will just be one release for both. And then from the embedded same time perspective, we will be upgrading the version of same time in probably the FP10 timeframe, so end of this year, so that you can automatically update the version of embedded same time via a feature pack upgrade, because same time 8.5 has been announced as end of supported end of this year. So we want to go ahead and help everybody remove that older version of the embedded same time client and upgrade to the latest version. So from a template perspective, templates will be released in separate downloads, but they will be aligned with feature pack releases. So, if we have a feature that requires a template update, then that template will be packaged and aligned with that particular release. Also, they will be posted on Fix Central, just like the Fix packs or the feature packs, but they will not be together. It will be a separate package. And then also, only updated templates will be released. So if there aren't changes needed for a feature, then there will be no associated template at that time. And there may be certain feature packs that don't have any template updates associated with them. There will also be one zip file for English and one zip for all other languages is what we will post. So let's go into the feature pack candidate. So this applies to the Windows feature pack. And we will go into a deep dive later on with Martin and Brian into all of the application development stuff that's going on from a feature pack 8 perspective. So I'm just going to kind of briefly read over some of the other things. So like ability to show internet address of notes addresses in mail counter contacts and to-dos. So that was shipped with feature pack 8. And that basically says, if you don't want to see the hierarchical address, you can show the internet address instead. We also have policy support for group by date. So we introduced this group by date in an earlier release, and now we have a policy to enforce that across your organization to set that by default if preferred. Going into feature pack 9, what you'll see here is that this is where a lot of the heavy lifting is going to be done in feature pack 9. It's the upgrade OSGI Eclipse SWT to support Java 8 compile time. So basically, this is going to really completely rebuild the house here for the Notes client with the latest versions or near latest versions of all of these components in order to support the Java 8 compile time. We'll also be releasing the ability to run rules on existing emails. These were demoed at Connect. I don't know how many of the folks on this call were able to go out to San Francisco for Connect, but we did demo some of these features as well. Support for last name, first name, support for auto refresh in delegated mail files today. If you're managing someone else's mail file and you've got that inbox open, then you need to hit the refresh button to see new mail. This will automatically occur when new mail arrives. And as you can see in this agile delivery methodology that we're adopting, past feature pack 9, we basically have a list of our high priority items. And here's where I'm going to ask for feedback from you guys, being our customers and you having your own users and customers as well. If you do not see something on this list that you feel should be added or would be beneficial to the product across multiple customer sets, let me or Adam know. You can either email us, you can tweet us, and we'll provide that contact information later. It's very easy to get a hold of us, and we've got basically an open door policy. We want to hear from you guys. So, all of these things are kind of in our backlog right now. We're kind of sorting, since we just released feature pack 8, we'll be forming feature pack 10 content. We'll be getting internal approval on that, and then, in the next couple of months, we'll be showing feature pack 10 on here, and we'll kind of slide everything down. So everything that didn't make it into feature pack 10, we'll just add as high priority going forward. So on the application development feature, I'm not going to get too deep into this because, like I said, the guys right after me are going to really do a deep dive on this. So let's kind of show this here. Oh, it looks like one of the high priority items didn't make it on here. I thought I added that the other day. We are, just as a note from a high priority perspective in our backlog, we've got the DAS enhancements that we'll show later as well that we announced at Connect. So we'll correct that on the deck that gets distributed after this. And once again, this list is pretty sparse. We're just starting to work through some of the requests on the Domino side for feature pack 10. So I'm going to go ahead and take us into Verse on Premises. So we're going to talk a little bit about Verse on Premises before we kind of hand it over to the application development deep dive. As Adam stated earlier, this was released very end of last year. This is for our Domino on-premises customers to leverage their existing investment with IBM and get the latest and greatest UI, modern UI from a web browser and take advantage of the cloud work that we're doing in that space. So this is a cloud-first delivery. What you'll start seeing in the cadence is as we improve the back-end performance and scalability in Verse on-prem, you'll also be getting the UI updates a little bit behind the cloud. So everything that is in the cloud today will eventually be making it to Verse on-prem as we go through that process. This is a quite simple install. We do recommend using connections, files, and profiles. Everybody is entitled to that if you are current and active on your SNS. You are also entitled to Verse on-prem if you're current and active on SNS for your Notes Cal. You should be able to go to Passport Advantage and procure this code. We do recommend connections 5.5 files and profiles at this point. So just quickly, I know everyone's probably seen this slide before. This just shows the high-level architecture. The existing components are in blue. The new components are in white. As you see, we did do some API work there, and we will be, helping and expanding in the Domino API world going forward as well. So let's kind of talk about the roadmap for Verse on-prem. As you can kind of see here, this is the timeline starting last year, GA'd in December, and we've got GA next, which is first half of this year. That will be the 1.0.1 release. After that, we've got a 1.1 release in the hopper as well. So here's kind of the feature functionality. This is, listed in semi-priority order, with the most important at the top, high availability, performance, and scalability. That will be the primary focus of the 1.0.1 release. Making sure that we can scale and get that performing at an enterprise level. We've got some really big improvements in that area, so that should be exciting when that comes out as well. There will also be a UI refresh is our intent for that release. And then we've got some stretch things on there as well, Connection 6.0 support that was just announced, I believe, yesterday, Connection 6.0. I think they have an end of the month EGA on that. Also, we're trying to get same-time rich client integration in. That will be sometime this year, calendar inbox. Delegation, we're working on that in the cloud. Once we deploy that in the cloud, which is targeted for first half of this year, and second half of this year, we will try to get that into the VOP. Extensibility, that one is actually probably moving up the list a little bit, so that we can provide the same extensibility to our on-prem customers that we've started to provide to our cloud customers. Mobile enhancements, suggested recipients, and then as we probably get to next year timeframe is when we start getting into the cognitive features here. So it's probably 2018 timeframe with cognitive organizer, promoted statements and messages. As you see those in the cloud, then we'll work on getting those to the on-prem release. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand that over. If Courtney, you can make, I believe Martin is the next presenter.
That's right. I'm going to show my screen and we should be good to go. Okay, so thanks Barry and thanks Adam for leading us in and summarizing all of the good stuff that's happening in the roadmap. I'll be presenting here on the app dev side with myself and Brian Gleeson. As those of you who know us, we work on the app dev team for Notes Domino and have focused in X Pages and OpenNTF and enablement and various aspects of the whole app dev realm up to now, and we're back again. We were here in November to talk about feature packs from an app dev perspective. At the time, I kind of set the stage with this particular slide here. So feature packs, as I described then, and as we have proven with the subsequent release last, well, actually on March 7th of Feature Pack 8, it works very well with the X Pages app dev model because up to this point, our traditional model had been such that we could introduce app dev features in between Notes Domino product releases. So as you can see on the top line of my slide here, we had X Pages, which came to Notes Domino in its first release was into 8.5, and we followed with the Notes client in 8.5, 8.5.1. But in 8.5.2, there were the introduction of extensibility APIs, which meant that from that point forward, everybody who was interested was able to contribute their own features, their own controls to the extension library. So the community was therefore no longer dependent on what the app dev team could give them. And from that was born this X Pages extension library project, which went on to be the most successful OpenNTF open source project that we've had in ICS. So I think that 94,302 downloads snapshot was from yesterday, accurate as of yesterday, if you go to exdlib.opentf.org. So it continues to climb steadily. But what that started out to be was really an experimental project to show how extensibility worked. And the community really kind of latched onto it and started to enhance it and started to install it and put it into production. So the model, it came back to us that we ended up having to, support this earlier than planned. So we put in an upgrade pack and reinserted the contents of the extension library into 8.5.3. And from that point onwards in our model, we continuously developed and released what we could on OpenNTF, and we would sync those back into the Notes Domino major releases. So 9.0 and 9.01 would have gotten everything that was current on OpenNTF X Pages extension library at the time, plus whatever was in the X Pages core product pipeline on top. So when we go and look at the picture today, that really hasn't changed significantly, because rather than syncing with product releases now, we can simply sync with feature packs. And because feature packs have a more frequent cadence than product releases, then we expect to be able to release an OpenNTF as we always have, but to fold them into the product releases much more frequently. And because the feature packs themselves can contain not just fixes but new APIs, it gives us the ability to deliver app dev features on a much more agile basis. So I was just taking an example of things we'll show you today. For example, document encryption that was intended for the 9.02 release because it required core changes at that time, APIs to get at the IDE vault, etc. So those API capabilities went into feature pack 8, which meant that the X Pages encryption, decryption document capabilities that build on top of that also went into feature pack 8, whereas traditionally we wouldn't have had that ability because we were always dependent on a major release. Plus, of course, there's the X Pages pipeline itself, which could always extend and build upon the latest release that was out there. So we were always able to put things like Bootstrap and other common libraries that were popular with our community to put them into the current OpenNTF stream. They're all now back integrated into feature pack 8 as well. So we had a continuous delivery model that has actually sort of gotten better now because we can drop far more frequently into the core product. So as an open source contributor, and we're proud to say that, you know, over the last number of years, we've had many from the community kind of getting their favorite fix or feature into the X Pages extension library. Well, you know, those are now showing up in feature pack 8. So it's a good vehicle for getting what you want if you're prepared to roll up your sleeves and do a little bit of development and make the open source contribution model work for you. When you're inside in Domino Designer, you know, people have asked about how do we control all of this versioning. We're able to drop things in now anywhere we want, and I might have a mix of servers out there. Well, if you go to Domino Designer, you'll see that we always had built in various versioning controls, if you like, or means of management. You can always build an Xpages app to a particular release level. So if you had, again, a mix of target environments, you could decide that you were going to build your application for 9.0.1, for example. And if you happen to have Xpages that were in your application that were using later features, then they would be flagged as errors and you would need to address it. So you can see in your latest Domino Designer, you can see that Feature Pack 8 is now showing up as an official release there, and so will Feature Pack 9, etc. So also each property of every control and every data source and any Xpages tag you see on a page is version marked, every single one of them. So you can see here, I'm looking at an encryption key provider on the bottom right. That was a feature that went in to the last Feature Pack release. So that is marked as being 9.0.1 version 8. V08 is represents the feature pack number there, and indeed we can have other sort of update releases from OpenNTF between feature pack 8, let's say, and feature pack 9. Then you could have a V08, 01, 02, 03, and so forth. So because of the sort of very granular versioning mechanism, we can continue to innovate between feature packs on OpenNTF. Your designer and your runtime will not get confused because the versioning will always take the latest stuff. And so, and if you need to dumb it back down to an earlier version, then on my left you have the means to do so. So as you can see, we were very much set up for extensibility, for versioning, for dropping stuff into Notes Domino. This is a great opportunity for us to actually accelerate and to build on top of that. So what is in Feature Pack 8? So, well, there's a heap of Xpages stuff in there, right? Because all 17 releases, which I'll show you in a minute, that were released post 9.0.1, the aggregate of those have been delivered. Domino Designer itself, on the one hand, it provides tooling for all of those features, so that's all in there. Of course, there was all sorts of innovations in there around Bluemix tooling, that's in there. We had features we'll talk about, like the support new extension points for things like theming and for the swiper integration. All of that is in there, so I'll come to that later. So you have Xpages related tooling, but you have independent features in there, and of course there's DAS, which Barry was looking for earlier. I think I might be the guilty one here of moving or updating a particular slide. So Barry, your slide is there, so it's a little bit later in the deck, and we'll get to it anyway. So in any case, DAS, Domino Access Services, these are the REST APIs that have been out in OpenNTF for quite some time, and that there's a renewed emphasis on making sure that they're built out and completed more extensively, I guess. So in Domino today, you have the mail and data DAS services. You also have calendar and FreeBusy. All four of those are on OpenNTF, and the mail and data services of DAS, which give you the REST APIs to manipulate your Domino, well, the data services, for example, will give you the APIs you need to manipulate your views and documents and so forth. So all of those services are on OpenNTF, and there's a bunch of new ones that are stacked up to come in future feature packs, providing services in and around the directory, subscription services for notifications of events of document updates and so forth, for contacts, for mail search, and other areas like management of users, etc. So what you have in DAS today is very much set for more enhancements through the feature pack pipeline, and right now, I guess DAS already has been updated to use the Open API spec or Swagger, as it's perhaps better known. So all of that stuff has been released on the OpenNTF DAS API specs repo, which means that you can use the tools for documentation and experimentation there today, and really see what you get currently with DAS, and we will be looking in the future to see what's coming down the pipeline. So I talked earlier about the aggregate of Xpages stuff, and there is a lot of stuff. We'll be getting to the demos on that very shortly, so you can expect to see in those demos RDBMS support that's now built in and shipping as part of the product. The same with Bootstrap, the same with Bluemix tooling. Those of you who've contributed features, while Brian is demoing, I'll try and think of some of the most recent ones from members of our community, and perhaps we can get a chance to show those. On the post-901 Domino internal pipeline, we had document encryption. We had changes to the APIs that enabled us to, on the designer side, we had changes to the tooling, I should say, that enables us to build iNote's calendar controls very, very quickly without having to do all of the hand coding ourselves. We had that capability for some time, but the complexity in terms of building a calendar for the developer was a lot of work. Also, the APIs that the Java APIs on which we depend had some issues resolved in there for repeating to better support repeating entries and so forth. So you can expect a lot of things. The demos are going to focus on these 4 areas, and I'm going to hand over to Brian Gleeson, my colleague, to take you through the first couple of demos in that space.
Okay, cheers, Martin. You can transfer the screen. I'll start sharing mine. Moment. Hopefully it should be coming through now. Let's just jump back to the slides for a moment. Okay, so as Martin said, we're going to go through a few demos here of the highlights of this feature pack 8. For me, I'm going to go through some of the features related to Bootstrap and the relational support. For those of you who have been using the open source extension library for the last 17 releases, you'll probably be familiar with these features already. But for those of you who haven't been able to use the open source extension library, these will be new features that are available at your fingertips for X pages in feature pack 8. So what I'd like to do is imagine a situation where you've got 2 different data sources. One is a typical NSF database with some information in there, and then the other is a DB2 or relational database, storing some other information in there. So let's imagine that for feature pack 8, the X pages team itself has 2 of these data stores, one NSF and one in DB2. But the team is, they're tired of operating across 2 different databases, so they want a unified application where they can manage the list of bugs themselves. So what it is, created a simple application that aggregates the 2 data sources into a single X pages application using these feature pack 8 features, Bootstrap and RDBS support. So if I jump out of the screen share here and go over to my browser. So this is the application. At the top, we've got a dashboard control which displays the status of all of the bugs in the system here, and how many are under each category. So for the purpose of the demo, I've divided it up into 2 different data views. So on the left-hand side, we're getting our data from an NSF database, and on the right-hand side, we're getting our data from a DB2 database. And I've actually populated this with real data, so these are real bugs or real defects that existed before FP8, and I've marked them in various different statuses for this demo app. But these were all bugs that were fixed and released as part of feature pack 8. So we've got all of our information here aggregated into one application. I can quickly create a test bug here in the DB2 database and save that. And then you'll see on the right-hand side that my test bug has been created. If you notice at the top, the status then says there's 7 open bugs and 21 fixed. So if I go into that bug and mark it as fixed and hit save, the status at the top is now updated to 6 and 22. And I also have enabled filtering. So if I click on one of the icons up here, it filters both views using a particular key, which is in the URL parameters at the top. So what I'm going to do now is just jump over to Designer to talk about how this is all supported and how it's implemented in your X pages application. So in my bug by status X page, which is the one that you were just seeing in the browser, I've got a data view down here with the value set to JDBC query 1, and that is referencing this variable name up here, which is a JDBC query data source. This is similar to the data sources that you would add to your views for Domino views, but in this case, it's referring to a JDBC source, which is the Java database connectivity framework. So we're using JDBC to connect to a relational database, a DB2 database, to pull the data. And what this data source is doing is it's using this SQL query to query the database to get the list of documents back from it. And so this is selecting all the documents from a particular table in there and returning all of those. And then the second part of the query is where I've set up that filtering that I showed you a moment ago. So that's where the data source is getting the data from and hooked into my data view XPage control. So if I go over to bug utils, then I wanted to show you this get bug count function, which is a server-side JavaScript inside of a JavaScript library. And what it's doing is it's building up the count of all of the bugs in the system. And so it's referencing the database, the NSF, it's pulling out the bugs view, and it's getting an entry count. So that's getting one side of the count from the NSF side. And then on the DB2 side, we're using one of these at functions. So there's 4 or 5 different at JDBC at functions supported by in Feature Pack 8, and these allow you to do various things to query or manipulate data within a relational database. In this case, it's simply executing another query, this SQL query here, which is counting up all of the records inside of the book list table, and then it combines those together and returns them as the result. So that's one other. So you've got your JDBC data sources, you've got your JDBC at functions, and those are 2 of the ways that you can access your JDBC relational database. So in order to support that, we need a bugs.jdbc file, which is actually stored within my XPage application under web content, web INF, bugs.jdbc in the JDBC folder. So you need to create this file, which will store the parameters for accessing the database. And this is actually a database that I'm running on my machine here, so you won't be able to access it, even though you have the username and password now. But anyway, we've got our JDBC tags here, which is storing the parameters. We've got the driver type, which is the type of JDBC driver we're going to use, specifically the DB2 driver. We've got the JDBC URL to access that database, and then we've got the username and password. So with this file in place and using your JDBC functions or your JDBC data sources, you can hook up your application to use a relational database. The last thing that's needed to support all of this is an actual JDBC driver itself. So the relational support will work with any relational database that provides a JDBC driver. They said it's a common Java database connectivity framework, and many of them provide their JDBC driver to access their data. So in order to create that driver and drop it into your server, we've got a handy plugin wizard here built into Designer. So you can select a particular type of JDBC driver you want to create, such as DB2. You can add the JDBC driver jar file, so you get that from your relational database vendor. In the case of DB2, it comes within your install. There's a db2jcc.jar file, but other databases, you have to go and download it from their websites and so forth. And then you would create that, or then you would select somewhere to output that on your desktop or on your desktop, let's say. And you can create a full update site or just a plugin. And then this wizard will finish off and create a new OSGI plugin, which wraps around this JDBC driver that you've gotten from the vendor. So I've already done all that and installed it to my server I've got an update site here, an Eclipse update site, and I've installed the created plugin that came from that wizard for me. So that wizard helps you through the process to kind of try and simplify all of this for you. And once you've installed it to your server, then you'll be up and running to use your JDBC queries and JDBC data sources within your applications. So that kind of covers the relational database support in brief. And so now I just want to talk about the responsive capabilities that are part of Feature Pack 8. So we released Bootstrap as part of the extension library on OpenNTF. I think it's towards the end of 2014. And we've been, building on top of the support of that and upgrading Bootstrap within the extension library since then, and now releasing it as part of Feature Pack 8. So it's in the, it's in a core release essentially of the XPage's runtime and design time. So if I resize my browser here, you can see that the application itself is completely skinned with a Bootstrap look and feel, very different from the One UI look and feel of older releases of XPages. And what I'm going to do is resize my browser to simulate what it would look like on smaller devices. So if I keep resizing down, I reach a smaller screen size, and a number of different things have happened here. So the menu on the left-hand side has now been hidden, and instead we get a menu on the top nav bar with the same set of links. You can see the difference there. As well as that, the dashboard control has reorganized from a one-row, four-column view into a 2x2 to save on space. The two data views are now stacked vertically as well. And if I keep going further, a few more things will happen. The menu at the top is now collapsed to save space, which you can still access all of the links from the collapsible menu. And if I keep going even further, the final responsive action here is that the icons on the dashboard control actually get smaller. So if I go back again, you might be able to see that they get bigger and smaller depending on the size of the screen. So what this is showing you is that we've got a number of different responsive capabilities available in XPages as part of Feature Pack 8. The collapsible menu at the top and the disappearing menu on the left are inbuilt features of the application layout control. And there are other controls within XPages that have responsive capabilities automatically built into them, such as the dashboard control, which you can configure to reorganize the icons and layout of that particular control. Then as well as that, you've got the full set of Bootstrap capabilities available to you. And so most of those you use by simply specifying different class names they can be elements within your application. So in the case of the two data views, which are stacked vertically on a small screen and are side by side on a larger screen, I'm simply using some of the Bootstrap features, some of the class names to control that stacking as appropriate for the screen size available. And the last one feature that I mentioned, the resizing of the icons on smaller devices, that's handled using CSS3 media queries. So all of these responsive capabilities are available and allow you to customize the experience of your application across all devices. So as one final example of this, I've got a bigger dashboard area which shows me 3 different dashboards tracking the 3 different ways of categorizing, I should say, the different bugs in the system. And if I start resizing that, you'll see that on every different screen size, the 3 different dashboards display differently to better make use and optimize the experience for the smaller screen sizes. So Bootstrap, and there's also jQuery is a dependency of Bootstrap, so that's built into the feature pack as well. So these things provide a lot of useful and flexible capabilities that you can build into your applications to optimize them across devices. So just to recap, as I say, you can dynamically optimize the experience of your applications across all of these devices, maintain a consistent look and feel, and also can maintain the level of functionality without compromising the experience for your users on the different sizes. So optimizing the level of vertical and horizontal scrolling that users have to do, and resizing fonts and icons on smaller devices and responsive capabilities such as that. This means that you can write your application once and then you can run it on any device, which is very important and prevalent these days given the range of devices that people use to work and to socialize as well. Within the feature pack, we've got Bootstrap, as I said, we've got jQuery, and the icons that I've been using in this example app are glyph icons, which are built into Bootstrap as well. And these are scalable, customizable icons built into a font, in fact, which you can drop into your application simply by specifying a CSS class name, and then you can easily customize it by changing the font size or changing the font color, and you can get the different types of icons that you've seen in my application there. So all of that's packed into Feature Pack 8 and now was released on March 7th, as Martin said. So we released Bootstrap 3.2 in version 10 of the open source extension library back at the end of 2014. We upgraded that to 3.3.6 of Bootstrap in early 2016, and now as part of the Feature Pack 8 release, we upgraded to the very latest release of Bootstrap 3, which was 3.3.7. And I should say that Bootstrap have said that 3.3.7 should be their last version 3 release, as they're moving to focus on Bootstrap 4, which is currently in, I think it is still in alpha at the moment. But this should be the last upgrade necessary for Bootstrap 3 within the XPages runtime. And so all of the latest capabilities there. Yeah, and next slide. So there are two ways to apply it, or there are two themes that you can use to apply this to your applications. And these are available in the theme dropdown in your application properties. So if I jump back to Designer quickly here into the XSP properties, you can see that Bootstrap 3 and Bootstrap 3 Flat are available in the dropdown here. And I'm actually using a custom theme to apply the Bootstrap theme here, but you'll see that it extends one of those and adds some extra capabilities on top of that theme as well. So you've got those two themes available to use. There's a third theme which is considered somewhat advanced, so it's not shown in the dropdown. It's called Bootstrap 3_blank, and this is to allow advanced developers to they can go to the Bootstrap website, and there's a page on there that lets you build a completely customized version of a Bootstrap build by changing color properties and font sizes and many hundreds of different properties within the Bootstrap framework. And then you click a button, it'll build a copy for you, and you can download that. And the blank theme will allow you to drop in your very own customized Bootstrap theme into an XPages application, providing all of the framework there to add that customized version. So yeah, as I said, all the XPages controls get the Bootstrap look and feel, and many of them have responsive capabilities built into them. We also added 3 new Bootstrap-specific responsive controls called the carousel, the dashboard, and the navbar. So you've seen the navbar at the top of my demo application and the dashboard as well. The carousel is a kind of a photo reel control that you can add to your applications as well. And we also added an application layout wizard with 2 additional responsive configurations. So I very quickly again jump back to Designer here and drop in the application layout control. It'll bring up the wizard for me, and I can select a responsive configuration for that layout control, and then click next and start configuring the properties therein. So as you quickly create the application layout control, which kind of defines the layout of your entire application. And as I said, we have this new responsive palette on the right-hand side with our 3 new responsive controls as well. Okay, yeah, and this, in terms of the relational support, allows you to integrate relational data into your XPages applications, so long as that database supports JDBC access. And you combine your XPages controls to 2 different data sources, the JDBC query that I was using in my example, or you can use JDBC row set, which is read and write. Query is read only. You can use 2 types of connection pooling to optimize and improve the performance of the connections to your relational databases. There's simple, and then there's the open source Apache DBCP mechanism for that. And then we've got a set of ACT functions that you can use in server-side JavaScript to perform interactions with your relational database. And I also showed you briefly the driver plugin wizard, which allows you to build the OSGI plugin to support JDBC access of your relational databases on a Domino server. Okay, so I think that covers all of the demos that I want to show you today. So I can jump back to Martin, who I think is going to take over.
Yep, Brian, thanks very much for all of that. I will show my screen again. So yeah, so kudos to Brian for showing app modernization, really, in terms of being able to build a UI based on the most popular framework out there for responsive behaviors across devices, and also showing that we could take data not just from Domino, but from importing from relational and so forth. So the flexibility, you know, that's a whole lot of new power for development out there. We've had that capability out there in OpenNTF for a while, but now it's built in there and fully supported within the feature pack releases. So I'd like to show something that's coming from the core XPages pipeline. So it wouldn't have been out there in OpenNTF before now, but it's debuted in Feature Pack 8, and document encryption has been a notes feature for quite some time, and it was a very powerful feature that enabled people to basically encrypt one or more fields on a form. So a document, I could decide that, as I say, one or more fields were encrypted, and I could do that encryption based on a secret key that was contained inside my ID that I and somebody else may have shared, or I could do it based on public key encryption, symmetric encryption, that is, using by selecting somebody from the names and address book, for example. So I could encrypt it with their public keys, which are publicly available, but to decrypt that document requires the person, the user itself, to have to use its own private key. So we've got those two forms. If the documents were encryptable either way, as long as you had a form, as you created a document based on the form that had one or more encryptable fields. So we've had that capability in Notes. Unfortunately, it hasn't been available on the web until now, because the secret keys that I've talked about, and access to the name and address book was all dependent on access to the ID vault. So what I'll show you now is encryption working on the web via XPages. The APIs are also there in Java and server-side JavaScript, etc. So there's you can do it outside of XPages, obviously, but the advantage, of course, that we'll show here in XPages is that we've taken a lot of the complexity out of the whole process by auto-enabling it and auto-enabling the design of it as far as possible. So if you want to get involved in this, just kind of specifying prereqs from the get-go, Feature Pack 8 is a minimum requirement. The Domino ID vault must be running in your server, and Domino security, the encryption is a privileged action, so you do need to have who's ever participating in encryption to be enabled to do so, which is a server setting for typically would be a group of users. Document encryption itself is something that we enable via property in XPages, so that you opt into it. So if your documents are encrypted, and up to now we haven't been able to decrypt them, so those fields simply don't appear. They don't appear in views, and they don't appear when you open the doc. They're simply not part of the document. However, if you do decide to that you have apps, for example, that you can't run properly on the web because they're encrypted and the data isn't viewable, then what you could do is simply turn on these properties, for that application, develop the XPages that you need to around it, and enable document encryption. The reason that this is actually a flag in the first instance is that for XPages to jump in and encrypt and decrypt documents is something that it's not necessarily expensive, but it is an overhead. So we don't want to do that if we don't have to. So simply a flag that tells XPages that this is an encrypted database, and for every doc open or doc save, there's a potential that we may need to deal with encrypted data. So that's basically the kind of the set of prereqs. I think I'd be better served at this point to actually jump to the demo. So if I can switch here to an application, you can see here I've got an application very much based around Brian's. It's a to-do application, actually, one that we used on Bluemix as our sample boilerplate app. So it does just simple things to open to record to-do documents. I can look at this one here. You can see, in fact, that I've got a simple document. I'm logged in here as Frank Adams, as you can see on the top right. Now I've got two other browsers open, so with different sessions. One is here where I'm logged in as Samantha Darren. So you can see when Samantha opens this document, it's been encrypted. This document is encrypted with a keys called VPs, which is a secret key that VPs of an organization have shared with each other. So Samantha, not being a VP, can't read the description of this particular document because that field has been encrypted. Similarly, if I go to my IE browser and I try to read that document, I can see here that it's created by Frank Adams, but I'm actually logged in here as Samantha Darren as well, I believe. I thought I was actually in here as Gail Chow. Yes, I am. Okay, so I'm in here as Gail Chow, and I can neither read this field either. So if I switch very briefly to kind of the source database, just move this down a little bit. You can see that on the form, the original notes form, it has a. I'm trying to get rid of this particular. Okay. It seems to constantly want to jump in my way. I'm not sure how to actually get rid of this field, but my point here, in any case,
hey, Martin, if you have another screen, you can drag it over to the other screen, and then it won't be shown. If you happen to have two screens hooked up.
I don't.
If not, Martin, there should be an orange button that you can click to collapse it. Hide, yeah, there you go.
Okay, cool. Thanks,
Drag
Courtney.
that over to the side. There we go. Thanks, Courtney.
It keeps jumping back to the middle, but I'm not going to get concerned about that for now. You can see that this particular form field here, in any case, has this red mark around it, which is an old notes demarcation that the field is actually encryptable. So based on that, that field is encryptable from a design point of view. So we very much build the Xpages capability exactly on top of what notes on the notes capability. So if I shift to notes, you can see here I've got some documents. If I'm just an administrator on this particular server, I'm not entitled to read those fields. So you can see that that field is blank. If I pop up the status bar, it says you cannot access this document, etc. Okay, so it's encrypted in notes, and as you can see, I get exactly the same error message bubbling up to me here when I don't have those keys either. In both cases, both for. I'm just going to show. Okay, so I moved it to the left-hand side. It seemed to be more favorite for it. So in any case, if I go back to my application here, I'm Frank Adams. I'm the creator of the document. I am a VP. If I open that document, I can decide to edit it. If I wanted to expand, so what this is a demo. This is a demo application. It's been designed to show you all of the capabilities, so I can create a normal document. By default, in fact, if I create a new to-do document, the encryption drop down here is set to none, so the document simply isn't encrypted. If I pick secret key encryption, as it already is, then it enables me to pick secret keys. And so what it's doing right here, right now, is that secret key picker accesses Frank Adams' ID in the ID vault, and it extracts the secret keys from it. It says here, these are your keys. I've encrypted it with the VP key. Now, M&A is the mergers and acquisitions group. If I select that, I've essentially what I'm doing here is I'm expanding the scope of encryption to this other group of users, whoever, if any of them hold that key. Now, I happen to know that these users do. So we go from being unable to decrypt the document to being able to decrypt the document. And similarly, Gail, Gail, if I look at IE, should be able to have the same experience with that document. So now that document, as I say, because it's encrypted with those keys, all of which are shared, I'll show you how, in fact, that capability right now without actually encrypting a document, but I can just say simply secret key encryption. I get my secret key picker, that control is unhidden and shown to me, and you can see that, the reason I can see that now is that I didn't have the VP one here, I had a finance key, but I do have the M&A key. So as soon as the mergers and acquisitions key was used and edited and the document was saved and re-encrypted, then I've been granted access to it. So it's a highly flexible system that is completely in tune with what Notes was doing in that space. And you can see here I've got an application kind of already built to deal with that. My PK public key crypto task, you can see here, I'm opening this document. It hasn't been encrypted with keys per se, it's been encrypted with well, not with secret keys, but with public keys. So Frank is the creator of the document yet again, and he encrypted it for Gail Chow. And again, if I were to just refresh this page here and look at my crypto, I must be logged in as Gail Chow over here. So I'll force a log out, and I'm going to log in as Samantha Darren. No, I am Samantha Darren. And as you can see, because I'm not part of that list, then I can't then I cannot see that particular piece of data. So public keys, secret keys, all very well, all working fine. I can I've developed this application. I guess the key question is how difficult was that, or how does that work from a design perspective? So without doing an entire deep dive, and I'll give you an oversight of that very quickly. I'll drop back here. You can see that these documents are encrypted in notes, but if I go to back to Domino Designer, I had the original form open, which contains an encrypted field. Here's the you can see here on the to-do doc, I have it open, and so what I was doing, if you remember, was I would pick like the secret key picker. The secret key picker in turn would look into the ID vault, and it would populate the field. That all pickers are for text fields, so it simply populated the field of the with the particular keys. So if you look at really what it's doing, we have new functions at user secret keys. It uses the Domino ID vault to get access to the Domino ID vault. So it's picked up my username and my password from the login button I showed you in the application a moment ago. So given that access, I was able to get at the ID vault securely, extract the keys, push them, if you like, to the input text box that says secret keys here. And so I had VPs and M&A recorded as keys in that particular field, and as soon Xpages developers will recognize that I was able to push those guys, right, are automatically stored in a view scope variable. So if I was to jump to the top of the file, you can see here that the Domino document also looks at the very same variable. So when documents are being saved, if this particular property, if this new feature pack 8 property has been is there, and if it contains key data, then it will look at that key and it will attempt to encrypt the document with those keys, and as long as those keys are in the ID of the current user, then the document is encrypted. If it was to create a key, if it was to contain a keyword called $public key encryptions, it would know to use public key encryptions. So for the same text field. So we have a very simple mechanism that has added a new property to the Domino document data source. You can, I've used it to look at a variable here. You could obviously populate this field any way you want. You could have static fields in here. You could have it doing a DB lookup. It just happens to be bound to the key picker by default. So you have complete flexibility in terms of how these keys are provided. But if keys are provided on the Domino document data source, they will be used to encrypt the document, and it's as simple really as that. So with that in mind, and with I think I have about 4 or 5 more minutes before I want to hand back to Howard for some Q&A. So I'll go back to my slides at this point. So you saw this demo where we were able to encrypt fields using the new picker that's available. To support all of that, the underlying APIs, we do have new functions. I've shown you very briefly at user secret keys, but there's at use in the same way that we have at username today that returns you the name of the current user. Then at user ID will get you the ID of the current user. At secret keys gets you the secret keys, if any, within those. There are APIs for all of these things, but these are kind of quicker Domino-centric building blocks that enable you to get there quicker. I also mentioned things like the Domino ID vault. So we do take a good guess at if you have basic auth set up on your server and your ID vault is on the same server, then we can function in default mode and extract the keys of the current user if that's the way you wish to have your application designed. If your application is more complex of using SAML or so forth to secure your application, then you will need to use the Domino ID vault to kind of set the access to the ID vault programmatically within your application. So as I say, server-side JavaScript and Java classes in action here. That's you can see the vault class. There's also the user ID class, and then other classes have been extended, like the session ID, the session class, the database, and the document to do encryption functions. Now, Domino Designer, as I mentioned at the start, has a miscellany of features in there, and we say these features are all about you because they're either they were typically contributed in direct response to issues in the forum, in the various development forums. So you know, opening always the XPages editor in the design tab, which was our default behavior. People wanted to have that as a preference where you could open specifically like in the source tab, which is popular with certain developers, or just simply sticky to be the last one you were in. Highly styled pages, when we go into the design mode, then we by default load the CSS to give you a realistic runtime representation in design mode of that. Now that can be expensive if you have a particularly heavy set of CSS that always gets loaded. So you have the ability to turn that off and so forth. People also kind of objected to the fact that some padded drawers seem to be organized alphabetically and others didn't. And given that we have over 100 controls in the XPages library, some of those palette drawers are quite large. So the ability to actually sort them alphabetically was a preference that you can set on, in which case all of the drawers are sorted that way. For some people, it helps them find stuff faster. But a lot more than that, right? We have various, what we call server-side, we have managed beans, if you like, as part of a runtime by default. I just mentioned the Domino ID Vault Bean as the latest one. A managed bean is just simply part of the XPages runtime that is automatically, it's managed insofar as it's automatically instantiated and disposed of by the runtime. You don't have to do anything, it's just there. So the Domino ID Vault Bean is there. If you want to set programmatically the name and user, the name and password of the existing user, you can do so. Similarly, the device bean is there. It's just there. It can tell you about the devices that you're currently operating from, the view state bean, the user bean, and so forth. They've always been there, but they didn't show up in this list in Designer, and they did not have type ahead when you use them programmatically. So that's cool. That's there. It's a very good feature, a productivity feature for development. What's also nice, of course, is that your own managed beans are also there. So if you defined your own, then they'll pop up here and they'll be completely integrated with Domino Designer. iNote's calendar support, I mentioned this at the very beginning. We can drag and drop an iNote's calendar wizard now, which will walk you through the process of pointing at the calendar and binding it and to the calendar view where the data lives. So that process was completely manual before. You had to cut and paste. What some people had done was taken the example in the team room template and cut and paste it to their own application. But you know, needless to say that was far from ideal. So there is an iNotes calendar control there now that automates that from a design point of view for you. I think Brian mentioned extension points. So when looking at Bootstrap, so we have some extension points. New here, if you had your own theme, you could type it in previously to the XPages properties theme default section, whereas by simply adding this class, they turn up there, and you can register them to turn up there by default. Again, going back to the community, we have some great guys out there that are doing very good work. Cameron Gregor was solving a problem really in the source control space where basically, when you would a good example was when you would rebuild a project, you get a lot of noise in your activity space where every design element had been touched, and therefore the date and time changed. And he was kind of eliminating that noise via his swiper control, but needed an extension point so that he could be reliably informed when something in the project had changed. And that's what we did in Feature Pack 8. And kudos to Cameron, who's continuing to add other innovations there as I speak. So we'll be supporting that hopefully for other feature packs in the future. And looking to the future, this is the slide, Barry, that I think I took your change from this version of it, and but I think the point that you wanted to mention was that on the backlog here, there's REST API enhancements will be continuing into the future, and that you'll be looking maybe in the Q&A even here today for some feedback on what best to include there. On the feature pack 9, you see that we have a huge task, I guess, to upgrade Domino Designer from its current old 3.4.2 version to 4.x. Hopefully that will be 4.4 or 4.6, I should say. But we're looking at that at right now. More than looking at it, we're working on that right now. It's a challenge. It'll be a challenge for Feature Pack 9, but it's a primary candidate there. We've also done some work to open source more of the X Pages runtime, so that it's possible for you guys to contribute and be more active in between the Feature Pack releases. And we're also evaluating what open NTF projects we can help. Perhaps we should be including in the runtime going forward. So as I say, of all of those, I think the Domino Designer upgrade to Eclipse is really exciting. It'll help, drop modern tooling back into Domino Designer, because we do have problems today where tools that people would like to integrate to Domino Designer simply require a more recent version of it, and so we're cut off at the get-go there. However, this, that's one of the main things that we're just giving us a modern platform to work with will really help us going forward. Is something that we have heard a lot about and that we'll be looking at. Another candidate there would be Smart NSF. Some of you might be aware of an initiative led by Christian Goodeman. So looking to kind of again enhance the REST capabilities via microservices. That's something that we hope will be turning up in EXTLibX, the incubator section of the extension library soon, and that way it could be it could use that as a vehicle into future feature packs. So I think we're almost at the Q&A session. One thing I did want to mention there was that the application, the server that Brian and I that mentioned, it was actually xsamples@ibmcollabcloud.com. So you can hit that right now, and you can play around with the samples that we were showing you today, both the encryption one and the relational and bootstrap one. And we do have a follow-up there to print more, to make the designs downloadable, and to publish some of the. There's anonymous access to the applications. In some cases, you'll need authentication as well. So we'll Twitter or we'll tweet all that in good time. So I did want to give a couple of call outs as well as we're finishing up here. I did mention some community contributions earlier on that have been included. So Jesse Gallagher and Eric McCormick, they have both contributed EXTLib utilities that were very much required. Paul Willers, one of our champions, has added picker enhancements that are now part of the feature pack 8. Cameron Gregor I've already mentioned, Christian I've already mentioned. So there's some great stuff there. There's an IF1 coming for feature pack 8 soon. It'll have a fix in there for icon display of the notes calendar that I showed you, the iNotes calendar. There was a bug reported around the relational, the managed bean editor not appearing in certain cases, which has been resolved. And I'll end with one for you, Howard. You did report a form validation error with the X Pages runtime, which is fixed and is in the pipeline for IF1. So don't say we don't listen to you.
That's great, Martin.
So with that, I can hand back to you.
Okay, well, thanks. Well, thanks to Barry and Martin and Brian and Adam. That was a great presentation. I think that really kind of showed us where we're at in the world of Notes and Domino at the moment. Just a reminder, if you want to ask any questions, there's a questions pane, and we're going to start on your questions now. Barry and Adam, Martin, and Brian were asking for feedback. Their Twitter addresses are on the screen. I also have on here a number of upcoming events happening. I spoke already about Engage. I don't have a lot of details on the Connect comes to the UK. I just saw that this morning, but I wanted to put that out there for our UK viewers. And also want to give a shout out to MW Lug for your long-term planning. I've been going to this for the last couple of years. It's a great event. Again, it's free or almost free. I think they asked for a $35 donation that goes to a charity. So please check that out. It's going to be just outside of Washington, D.C. this year in August. So keep that in mind. And let's get started with the questions. I'm going to kind of lump a couple together in some cases, and this is the first case of that. Zakaria was asking about red books for IBM Lotus 9. He can't find any. And also we had some questions about people wondering how to take advantage of the application layout and how to use it with the Bootstrap. And finally, I'm going to add my own question on top of that to you guys. Now that we've moved a bunch of stuff from the extension library where the documentation was kind of in many different places. It was in PDFs for each release, had some documentation. It was, in a set of HTML pages in terms of the coding itself. Is any of the documentation been updated in Feature Pack 8 to kind of update what's out there in the help?
Yes, is the answer. I didn't quite catch the entire question, but
well, I think the short answer is that across the 17 open source releases of the extension library, every single release had a certain amount of documentation released as part of it, explaining what was in that release and also how to use it. So all of the documentation from those 17 releases has been kind of aggregated up together into a new, I think it's called What's New in Feature Pack 8 or something like that. I believe that's been posted on support or knowledge center on IBM.com. I don't have a link.
Yeah, we can tweet that link, I think, after this. Porrick is here with me and he's finding it.
But that should have documentation about, Bootstrap and layout stuff and the relational stuff and everything else that's been added since 901 was released.
Okay, well, we can put that link in our email. That's going to go to everyone who attended as well.
Yep.
And now, in terms of the red books, are those no longer going to be done?
It's probably, I'm not sure, Barry, if you have that one.
I don't know specifically, but I would say most likely not, because we're moving to continuous delivery. So the features are going to be coming in quicker bursts in smaller amounts rather than a big bang release. And I know most of IBM Red books are all done virtually now. People don't go to a single location to work on them. It really depends on, our future cadence. Right now, probably not. We don't anticipate any new red books. You should be able to access the existing ones. If you're having an issue with that, let me know and I'll see what I can do on that.
Okay, thanks, Barry. Then there was a question about templates. First of all, will there be anything updated for the blog template? And then the other question is a number of the templates, like the name and address book, for one, use Java applets. Will there be, since those are no longer viable because of web browser security, are there any plans to update those?
Yeah, I believe the applets support has been ceased actually, right? Because they're no longer supported in any of the modern browsers. So if you have traditional, as in the original web based Domino renditions of those, then the parts that I think most people had progressed to X pages, but I think parts of those applications were applet based and they just simply won't run in a modern browser.
Correct. Yeah. So I guess the person asking the question was just wondering if the templates would be updated. In particular, you mentioned the name and address book.
Okay, so I know there was some discussion about how to handle that. So I need to get back on what the details are.
Right. I know that we're looking at that because, as we said, we don't want to break existing applications either. even though they may be older. So we're trying to figure that out now. As far as the blog template, our plan is not to update templates unless there is a feature that would require that update. So right now, blogs, it's not in our pipeline. If there's something specific as far as a feature or functionality that you would like, let us know. We can add that to the backlog if we feel that that's something that would be beneficial to our customer base.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Let's see. Here's a question regarding antivirus. Are there any plans for IBM to provide that for Domino servers? Apparently, the person asking the question, Gopala, says that it's getting difficult to find options for antivirus for Domino servers. Apparently, I guess he feels some of the players in that arena have pulled out of the market.
So there currently are no plans for IBM to provide that functionality. We are aware of that as being an issue, and we're trying to, think of some ways that we can alleviate that as a pain point. So, we've got to do some work here internally first to get this platform modernized, and then we'll start going out to our, partners, either from the past or current partners, to reinforce the strength in the platform.
Okay, thanks. Paul Delanebbia, someone we're all familiar with, hi Paul, asked about Bootstrap 4. What's the plans for incorporating that in a future feature pack or extension library?
Well, we started working on support for Bootstrap 4 I think we released it last year on OpenNTF in the XlibX project, the kind of extended or experimental Xlib project, which has kind of laid the foundation and groundwork for Bootstrap 4 support, but it has been somewhat dormant since that initial release. I couldn't speak specifically to our plan going forward there. I know that Bootstrap is still in alpha phase, so it's not clear when it'll be released, but it's something that we could consider certainly to bring that into a future pack at some point once it has been finished and released by the Bootstrap team. But no, I don't have any specific information about a plan around that yet.
Okay, thanks. Dwayne wants to know, is there an app formula like the JDBC execute query to execute stored procedures? And I guess if not, that would be an enhancement request, I assume.
Yeah, I think that is one thing that's missing at the moment is support for stored procedures. I'd have to go back and double check, but yeah, I think that might be an enhancement request that needs to be that would need to be added if we wanted to support that.
Okay. Let's see. So once you install Feature Pack 8, is there any reason to install an extension library? At what point would you want to go to OpenNTF to download anything related to the extension library? I guess there's a couple questions in confusion about, okay, I have FixPack something on my system. Once I install Feature Pack 8, should I uninstall? Should I, as new things come out, maybe you guys can address that?
Yeah. So once you've installed Feature Pack 8, the extension library plugins that are part of that release will essentially override any pre-existing install from the version in 901 or the open source versions that you've installed to your server. So the newest kind of timestamp or date stamp on the plugins, I think is how it's determined, and newest version number as well. And the FP8 will take precedence. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you, Brian. The plugins themselves and the features have, I was kind of showing it earlier on, that they have this kind of reasonably granular versioning in there that takes in, the major minor releases of the product, plus we have a version for the actual feature pack, and we have a mini version within that, which actually will represent OpenNTF releases within the feature pack. So so I think that's there both at the on the disk, that's there both at the feature and the plugin level, and also it's kind of within the X-Page logic itself. To, as I said, each property has its is versioned, and you can target particular versions. So I think that's all. If you install a version of OpenNTF based on Feature Pack 8, it'll override it'll take precedent over the core one, and you can specifically uninstall that and revert as well. So the management of all of that has been well thought out.
Okay, had a couple of questions on the encryption, and part of it was around security. Is the I guess part of the confusion might be is if you have to supply, do you have to supply a password for the user ID, and if not, how is the ID vault protected?
So the ID vault, obviously needs to be set up on the server and so forth. Yes, but each user has their own password for so each user that is a protected access. It's not the same as your. It's a different. You can make it the same as your Notes Domino password or whatever system you want, but it is actually a separate authentication. So the Domino ID bean that I was showing you earlier, if you had, if you have a secure implementation based on SAML or whatever, that you would obviously force somebody, require them to log into the application in the first instance. So if the authentication to the Domino bean is the same as your Domino authentication information in and of itself, you can simply set those properties right onto the bean, and then you can call or add functions with those properties internally in the app to access the vault. So security is taken care of. Everything is stored in the vault. You need secure access to the vault. We have provided the programmatic means of setting that, and your application needs to be how would you say, prompt the user in some way to get it. So as I say, typically people would build that into a sort of maybe an extension to the application login function that they already provide.
Okay, and Martin, I guess is that what you just described in the sample app that you demoed, and also will that app be put on like GitHub or somewhere where it can be downloaded?
Yeah, so interesting point. Yeah, if you hit that server right now, you have anonymous access to the encryption application, which means you can't create new to-dos, and for the sample docs that I created, you won't be able to see the encrypted data, even albeit just sample. So we will publish that application is the application which this is based is already on OpenNTF. I have extended it, that sample, to do the encryption work, and we will publish that as a sample, make it available somewhere, maybe on DevWorks or something soon.
Okay, and also we had a question from Simon. In the Notes client, we had the idea of signing documents, not necessarily encrypting certain fields, but signing a section. Is that something that is in this new set of features?
I don't believe that particular feature is there.
Okay. All right. Well, we're running close on time. Let me take one more question. The 64 KB summary limit now is 16 meg. Can you discuss that in some more detail in terms of what was done there?
I wouldn't have the NIF details on that, but I know that. What do I know about it? Well, I think that the entire limit was 32K for any given field could not exceed that particular limit, where I think that has been upgraded to 64. 64 gig, meg, something big. I'm just looking for my notes here.
Okay, it's probably more in the server team, I guess.
It is a question for Steve Watts, if that's someone you want to reach out to.
Okay, and now we had also, I'm going to close on this, and this is more of a feature request, and so then you guys can comment on this. But there's several folks who are asking about Node.js and Angular, other frameworks beyond Bootstrap and integration with that. Anything you can tell us about your plans on that?
So I'm just coming back to the previous question. I guess the 64K summary data limit in current releases is 64K per doc, 32K per field, and 32K per view entry. And in the current releases, it'll be 16 megabytes per doc per document, whereas the individual field and view limits remain unchanged. That's the data I have on that one, Howard.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
So was that other question to me as well? Unfortunately,
that's to the team, I guess. You know, a lot of people are also working in Angular and Node.js. Just wondering, you know, I guess a couple folks were interested in learning IBM's plans in that regard.
Well, certainly, I think, you know, if you're an existing Node programmer or Angular programmer and you're building your front end that way, then the DAS enhancements that are coming will give you a richer set of APIs to call. I think that the problem with DAS up to now has been that, you know, one of the significant problems has been in terms of its completion. There simply weren't enough APIs there to build a very rich application. And also, I think some of the things that are being addressed there was just the payload of information being more refined about the information that's been passed back and forth. So if your model is, I want to use a popular framework that Domino doesn't provide to build my front end, then the typical counterpart for that is a set of REST services to bind that to. Then that is certainly being enhanced. To provide that.
Hey Martin, this is Adam. I want to add to that statement, or just piggyback on it a little bit. So for those who don't know, we've created open API specifications for the 4 APIs currently in DAS, which are the mail, data, calendar, and free busy. And then we are looking to enhance those as well as create some new APIs for DAS to add to our REST API infrastructure to make it easier to use things like Node.js and Angular and things like that, and integrate into Domino. One of the things that Barry and I really desperately need, and you guys can tweet us or hit us up however you want, but the feedback from you on what functionality you want to see from APIs that'll help you be able to build the applications that you want to build. Because as we're going through this and as we prioritize and determine what APIs we want to build, your feedback is really key. So this is where, you know, going back to what Martin was saying a little bit earlier, go out on OpenNTF, take a look at the DAS stuff that's out there. The Open API specification allows you to use tools like Swagger. It's really great, but we are looking to enhance these. So let us know what you need so that we can better provide that for you.
Okay, thanks. And again, we'll the Twitter IDs for the IBM folks will be in the slides, and it's on the slide right now. But unfortunately, we are past our ending time. So I'd like to have a big thank you to the IBM team, Barry, Adam, Martin, and Brian, and also a thanks to my co-host, Courtney. Thank you for attending, everybody, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your day or evening. We will have a recording of this. We'll put in the email, a link to the slides. And just I want to also point out, many of you in the questions had suggestions for the IBM team. I didn't necessarily ask those verbally, but we are going to send the questions to the IBM team, so they will be reading every one of your questions that you have asked. So thank you again, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you from all of us at Team Studio, and we hope to see you here next month.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate the feedback.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.